Today on Rise Up, how are the religions interconnected? And who are the unknown prophets? And how is 2025 the year of unification? Join Irfan, Alamgir and ailia Hallal as we delve into one of the lectures from the School of Divine Mysteries by the riser Abdullah Hashem Aba al-Sadiq, entitled, Is Hinduism a Divine Religion? This is Rise Up.
Peace be with you and welcome to another installment of Rise Up. I'm Irfan Alamgir.
I'm Kevin al-Mahdi.
And it's Kevin has joined us again. Sister Alia could not be here. We are very glad to have Kevin today. Kevin
Glad to be with you guys.
It's amazing to have you, brother, as always. Today's episode is a slightly different one from the norm, in the sense that what we really wanted to do today was to hone in and focus upon the episode that al-Sadiq recently produced, that was released on the 1st of January, the year of the unification, beginning with the religion of what is now known as Hinduism. Hinduism is a slight misnomer in the sense that the people of the land of India, or Bharat, they refer to their religion in Sanskrit terms as Sanatan Dharma. Now, Sanatan Dharma means, it has various kinds of translations, but the best known one is the eternal Dharma, or the eternal religion, or the eternal order, meaning that this eternal order is applicable in all times, in all ages, for the spiritual upliftment and guidance of mankind. And the name Hindu is interesting, actually, because it derives from a Persian origin. And I think this also puts into context the way al-Sadiq talked about the nation of the Hindus as a very ancient civilization, and a people who are inclined towards spirituality. So the name Hindu comes from the word in Sanskrit which means Sindhu, and it's of course referring to the Indus Valley civilization that started around that time, predominantly actually in the land that is now called Pakistan, who are the mortal enemies of the Indians. And the river runs from the southern estuaries in Karachi all the way into northern India, and this river is like the river Nile was in Egypt. And actually the civilization of Bharat goes back to that time, and the three civilizations were running concurrently. You had the ancient Egyptians, you had the Indus Valley civilization, and you had the Mesopotamian civilization, which of course are three of the earliest human civilizations. So that is the origin of the nation of Bharat as a very ancient spiritual tradition, and anyone who knows about the Indus Valley civilization knows that it was a very advanced, sophisticated civilization when you look at the various things they were able to accomplish from an engineering point of view.
Yeah, you know, and even today, like it's pretty well known that Indian mathematicians are really like among the top mathematicians in the world, for example.
Yeah,
right?
Very true. Yep, absolutely.
So it is clear that the civilization that was started back then still has, it's preserved, in some ways, right? Even today, while other civilizations have died, have been extinguished. The civilization of the Indo Valley is still pretty much at the forefront of some of the fields of human knowledge now.
It really is, and a very ancient civilization. And al-Sadiq gives them, the people of the land of Bharat or India, their due respect, and he addresses them with a greeting that they're very familiar with, which is Namaste, or another version of it is Namaskar, very well known greeting of the people of that land. And he focuses in on the commonalities that exist between Hinduism or Sanatan Dharma, and the other world religions of ancient civilization, spiritual tradition that is informing that land, that great land, as al-Sadiq called it. So let's go to our very first episode. The idea is that we are trying to understand and make bridges and see the common denominator between the world religions and how they all have the same origin. And without further ado, let's bring in our first clip, and then we will be back to discuss it.
So today we want to have a conversation. It's going to be a conversation that is geared towards some of the other religions, one in particular that is not considered to be one of the Abrahamic religions, and that is the religion of Hinduism. And so we're going to be addressing today that topic. We're going to be talking to our viewers who largely come from Judeo-Christian Islamic backgrounds, but we're also going to be addressing a new audience, a new group of people that some of them are subscribed to our channel, and we hope to reach many more, and that is the great people of India or Bharat. And for that reason, we want to take a moment to say to all of them, Namaste to the great people of Bharat, or the great people of India. They are a people that have an ancient civilization. They've been around for thousands of years. They're one of the oldest civilizations on the planet. And they're also one of the greatest people that exist. They are a spiritual people, people that are inherently inclined towards religion, and they worship of a god, right? And they are, oddly enough, mentioned in some of the narrations of Muhammad and the family of Muhammad as being a very knowledgeable people. We had mentioned previously in one of the episodes that had to do with astrology, right? The science of the stars. We had talked about, and people can go back and review that episode for more detail, but in short, we had mentioned that there were many narrations that had stated that during the time of Joshua, the son of Nun, and during the time of Abraham and some of the previous prophets and messengers, there are in the Judaic traditions and also in Islam this affirmation that there was this science. And that was the science of the stars, the ability for the person to look into the heavens, see the stars up above, and to be able to take from that a particular knowledge of what is to happen in the future, right? Or to know how the planetary bodies affect the person who is born under that star, or if you were to go, for example, to perform a particular mission while a particular constellation was in the sky, whether you'd be given success or not, right? What many refer to as modern day astrology. You have your horoscopes that are given to you in the newspapers and the, the local television channels that have astrology shows. They used to have it a lot more in the past than they do now. But the origin for that science, according to the narrations of Muhammad and the family of Muhammad, and according to Jewish narrations, is a true science. And in one particular narration, the Ahl Bayt alayhim salam, the Imams, are mentioning how that ever since the day that Joshua ibn Nun made dua, and in other versions, ever since Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam made dua, and the sun was delayed so that he may establish the obligatory prayer, the readings or that knowledge of the astrology that existed at that time has been lost. It's only been safeguarded by two families, according to the narration. a household from the Arabs, which is obviously referring to Muhammad and the family of Muhammad alayhi salam, whom are the successors that inherit all of the previous knowledge of the prophets and the messengers, including this knowledge which was given to mankind by the prophet Enoch or the prophet Idris, according to the narrations, and a household from the Indians. And so the Indian people in this narration are mentioned as being safe guardians of knowledge, that they have amongst them people whom have held on to the real knowledge and sciences of the prophets and the messengers.
Wow.
And because they are such a numerous nation, they're a nation that's very large. There's a billion Indians that exist on the planet. Because there's such a numerous people, the idea that they had never had a prophet or messenger from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that was ever sent to them is a preposterous notion that we have to reject based on what we know from the Quran and from Muhammad and the family of Muhammad alayhi salam. And that is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran on many occasions that basically there's no nation that has not been sent a messenger, and there's no punishment that befalls a people except that we send to them a warner beforehand, and that for every nation there is a guide, right? And we have also narrations from the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam that stated that there were 124,000 prophets and messengers who were sent to mankind. And the only surviving list of prophets and messengers are about 25 that are mentioned by name and largely agreed upon in the Quran, right? And most of those 25 prophets and messengers are Semitic prophets and messengers, ones that were either sent to the children of Israel, such as Jesus or Moses, or they were Arab prophets and messengers that were sent to the Arab peoples, like the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, like Saleh, like Hud. And there are very few mentions of messengers outside of the Semitic prophets and messengers, because of the fact that the Quran was in Arabic and it was mainly addressing the peoples that were alive and around the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam at that time. And those were people that were familiar with Judaism, Christianity, and Islam.
Yes, so that was the beginning of the lecture, that segment where al-Sadiq addresses the people of the land of Bharat, or India as it is known today. And he mentions that they are indeed an ancient civilization, and they were even alluded to and spoken of by Muhammad and the family of Muhammad, and specifically in the area of the knowledge of the heavenly bodies, the science of astronomy, its other aspect, which is also astrology, which is not so well thought of. And the idea is that they were very, very highly developed in the measurement of the alignments of these heavenly bodies, and able to also understand that the effects that these heavenly bodies have at various times on the human being, on the psyche of the human being. And also, as Brother Kevin said, their incredible grasp and talent for mathematics. So al-Sadiq is referring to a narration, which is fascinating, isn't it? That there is a family among the Arabs, and he said this is the Ahlul Bayt, and a family among the Indians who have this safeguarded knowledge. Yeah, exactly. This really is something interesting, isn't it? And you mentioned mathematics. Have you had any experience or exposure when you were talking about, or when you were learning about the religions of the East, about this concept of them being highly advanced in mathematics? Of course, the numerals come from the land of India, that they invented the zero and all these other things, and then taking it into the study and alignment of the stars and heavenly bodies.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the luck to have understood astronomy or astrology, but I'm deeply interested in the heavenly bodies, and I try to read as much as I can when I can about it. And one thing that I know is that, for example, for Pythagoras, the study of the heavenly bodies is like applied mathematics, anyways. So I think Plato as well. When they looked into the sky, they were fascinated by how perfect the movements of the stars are, and they used to contrast it with the movements of the things on Earth, and this is why they developed this idea, or maybe they basically draw a parallelism between this realm and how all the religions claim that this realm is like inferior, and the heavenly realms which they see as perfect, and they saw, at least Plato and Pythagoras, in the perfection of the movement of the skies, because they are precise. They are always like moving in the same rate, in the same pace, and the cycles are perfect. So basically, they were seeing how this they saw as a manifestation of the perfection of the heavens, of the heavenly realm, and this is one of the reasons why they tend to put God to be in the heavens, because of the perfection of the heavenly realm. And with regards specifically to the land of India, the book of the Goal of the Wise, it says in the chapter, I think it's 8 or 9, about the celestial bodies.
Yes.
That the household that preserves the knowledge of astronomy in the astrology in India, they are the descendants of the successor of Enoch, peace be upon him. So
that's interesting.
That's a very interesting thing to note. And of course, I mean, when you look at ancient civilizations, you realize, and this is one of the things that fascinates me the most, because my mind is very inclined to history. And when I look into archaeology and all this stuff, what I see is that many of the ancient structures that fascinate the minds of the people, like the pyramids, or things like Stonehenge, or certain landmarks. I've also noticed that there are landmarks in specific places in the world that basically people revere, or people like are fascinated by them, or people intentionally built in order for them to be observatories of the skies.
Yes.
So definitely the people from the past, they had a deeper connection to the heavenly realms. They saw it important, and they studied it, and they of course they must have developed a lot of knowledge. If you have people in society whose work is just to look at the stars and to try to draw connections between the parts of the actions of the heavenly bodies with the actions of people, and you have prophets and messengers that come to you and explain to you these things, right now we know, like scientists have said, that the moon has a very a lot of connection to the plants, for example, to the growth of plants, and also to the behavior of certain animals, and even the behavior of human beings. Some people have drawn connections between, there's these stories also of the werewolves coming in the full moon, right? Yeah. So this is why, because people have noticed that the heavenly bodies have an influence, and this is scientifically proven, at least in for some heavenly bodies. So, of course, when prophets and messengers come, they deepen our understanding of all these things, and I mean, it's clear that, of course, they have to be connected to us, because even though we see the universe to be so vast and so big that people think these stars are so far away from us that they cannot possibly have any influence on us. But if you think about it, it's actually not a universe that is like light years big, but it's actually like a small tiny cell in the back of a mosquito. So obviously, like the objects are very, 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 very
it's all
close,
relative,
extremely
isn't it?
close to us in the grand scheme of things. So of course they do have an influence on the lives of people, and I think it's really important, and it's going to be amazing when al-Sadiq and the Mahdis start sharing this knowledge about the stars.
Absolutely. And there will be, and it's coming, it's very soon. And when you consider the narrations that come from the family from Arabia, the Ahlul Bayt, they said that this matter of the Qa'im, of Imam al-Mahdi, will be accepted by the worshippers of the sun and the moon. And if you take that to mean those people who have knowledge of the celestial bodies and their impacts upon the psyche and physiology of mankind, then certainly I think the people from the land of Bharat or India are foremost in that equation, because they are also
definitely
referred to by the family of Muhammad as those people who have this knowledge that the Ahlul Bayt did. So that's a very interesting kind of acknowledgement of these ancient peoples from India.
And also the fact that al-Sadiq is mentioning how basically the same argument that he has posed several times, and for the people who are just recently coming to know al-Sadiq and these things, basically when we talk about Plato and Aristotle being prophets, and now Krishna, al-Sadiq is revealing, I mean, we knew it from a long time ago, but now he's openly speaking, and he's going to deepen our understanding and the way we look at this religion, specifically Hinduism. We basically, he's putting forth the fact that what we understand from the Islamic Judeo-Christian perspective to be a prophet, first of all, like for example, if you go to the Jews, they have a different definition to the Christians to what is a prophet, and the same thing with the Muslims. But in the end, there is this idea that God sends messengers, and the prophets are like messengers from God, something like this. But and in other regions of the world and in other religions of the world, we don't have this concept of prophets and messengers coming. But what he's trying to make you understand is that these big characters that shape the religions of and the thinking of other peoples, maybe they didn't come with the title of prophets and the messengers, not because it doesn't exist, not because they were not claiming to be that, but because maybe the culture and the language themselves didn't have this concept. And in the case of, for example, Greek philosophers, he said that basically introducing the concept of a prophet of God in a land where there was polytheism, or at least the cult to different deities, even whether they were like the ultimate thing, thought to be the ultimate God, or semi-gods or deities like inferior gods. The fact of the matter is that they had this concept that they could come in the physical world and just interact with the people. So for him to claim to be the messenger of the ultimate God could have made the society start developing other people who would come to them and tell them, hey, I'm a messenger from Apollo, I'm a messenger from Aphrodite, I'm a messenger from so and so and so and so and so and so, and he would have like created like societal chaos. So there is many reasons why the prophets and the messengers of other peoples, other nations, we don't see them as prophets and messengers, and maybe they themselves didn't claim to be messengers from God. But the fact of the matter is that in the same way that we recognize a prophet of God from the Islamic Judeo-Christian tradition by the law of recognizing the Hujjah, we can also find the law of recognizing the Hujjah in the prophets and the messengers of other nations. And we see people like Krishna, for example, saying things like abandon all kinds of religion and follow me, right? Which he himself being like a manifestation of the ultimate God on earth. What is he trying to tell you? He's trying to tell you the same thing as Jesus when he says, I am the truth, the way, and the path. The religion comes through the character, the messenger of God who is in front of you, and you should abandon every other path and just follow the man that is coming from God in the present time right now. So it's exactly the same ideas, exactly the same understanding of religion that they are bringing, but just the thing is, they come to different places and they come with different knowledge, and this is why right now people think them to be so far apart. But in reality, when you look deep into the teachings of the religions, you will find striking similarities, and this video is like, I think this video puts like the first foundation of how to actually look at Hinduism.
Yes, it's the way the universal law does apply to the men who represent in their physical form, that proof of God that came to this particular land, and that universal law of recognizing the Hujjah very much applies to characters that are revered in Sanatan Dharma or Hinduism.
Yeah.
So I will just briefly mention before we go into the next clip that focusing on this particular religion and the fascination and understanding that they have of astronomy and astrology, the sciences of the heavenly bodies, there is in the beginning of the Mahabharata, which is an enormous epic kind of volume that has been written on this great story of not just the war, and not just does it just contain the Bhagavad Gita, but it contains many, many, many stories. And at the very beginning of this great war that happens between the Pandavas and the Kauravas, they actually describe in detail in a section of the Mahabharata the solar alignments, the position of the moon and the planets, and this motion and retrograde motion. I don't even know half of the descriptions that they've used to the depth and detail that they've described. And actually, an Indian astrophysicist working in the United States was able to use computer modeling technology to date approximately with these specific alignments that they've described in detail in the Mahabharata when that war could have occurred through computer modeling. So this is something that I will speak about towards the end when we reach our final clip. And al-Sadiq did sort of say that this character that is the focus of the lecture that came to the land of India actually preceded many of the prophets and messengers that we're familiar with in the Abrahamic faiths. But
Hinduism is the oldest religion in the world right now.
It is an absolutely ancient civilization and religious tradition. Let's go to the second clip of the rise of the family of Muhammad, talking about this nation and the religion that came from it, the religion of Hinduism.
In the Bible and in the Torah, the focus is pretty much mainly on messengers and prophets that were sent to the Israelites. You have mentions of prophets that were not, like, for example, you have a prophet that's mentioned in there. His name is Balaam, the son of Beor, or Balaam, the son of Ba'ura in Arabic. And he was a messenger who was sent to the people of Cyprus. He was a messenger that was the equivalent to Moses to the Gentiles, right? Or the non-Hebrews. So this concept in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam exists, that God does send to the non-Jewish people prophets and messengers. This idea exists, and this is even why the Israelites, some of them, consider the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ to be a legitimate, valid prophet, but they consider that his laws that he came with, his Sharia, his teaching, does not apply to them because they are the companions of a higher law that is intended only for Hebrews, while the Prophet Muhammad would go into the category of messengers that were sent to non-Hebrew people or Gentile people. We have narrations which we mentioned before also, which is really important, and I think we have to stop at and contemplate over it, because we were commanded to do so in the Quran. So many verses, as I mentioned before, in the Holy Quran condemns or criticizes the people that go over the verses or go over the words of the prophets and the messengers without contemplation. And so we have to contemplate over the verses of the Holy Quran. We also have to contemplate over the Sunnah, the actions, the Hadith, the words of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And in one particular incident that had taken place, we have a group of Muslims had come back from Egypt, where they were in Alexandria, right, which is one of the major cities in Egypt and one of the most ancient cities on the face of the earth. These people had come back, and the Muslims were asking these individuals, this army that had come back, about what it is that they had saw in Egypt. And so one of the individuals, Amr ibn al-As, in the narration, he states that they saw a bunch of people that used to sit in circles, and they were mentioning and praising a man by the name of Aristotle, may God's curse be upon him. Now, this is what Amr ibn al-As said. And when this reached to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he immediately stopped him from cursing this prophet, this individual, Aristotle, and he said to him, "Don't curse that man, for verily Aristotle was a prophet whom his people did not know, or they did not recognize." And so what we can understand from these words is that and when we put these narrations together, what do we have? We have this notion that there were many nations and people and countries that existed over the course of history from the beginning of mankind until now. All of them, for the most part, anybody that God saw goodness in, anybody whom there was any nation that had even one believer or one potential believer amongst them, even the rotten nations that were destroyed that had no believers amongst them, God would usually always send to them a messenger or two or three, and he sent 124,000 messengers to all of mankind in order to warn them. And these prophets and messengers, they were sent, they warned their people, they left a mark in history. What we know is that we don't have the names of most of them. We only have the names of a portion of them, less than 100 names of divinely appointed kings, prophets, messengers, and judges in the Torah and the New Testament, and only 25 messenger names that are agreed upon in the Holy Quran. And so the vast majority of the prophets and messengers, they are unrecognized, perhaps even by their own people who mistook them for only mere philosophers, as was the case with Aristotle. Or they are people whom are worshipped by their nations, or revered by, or recognized by their nations as enlightened beings, guides, teachers, prophets, messengers. But Judaism, Christianity, and Islam does not recognize them, merely for the fact that their name was not mentioned in the Quran or in the Bible or in the Torah. And to dismiss any of those divinely appointed teachers, prophets, or messengers, to curse them, to consider them to be polytheists, is an extremely dangerous thing to do, and it is against the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who strictly forbade his people from cursing out a great teacher by the name of Aristotle, and actually revealed him to be one of those unrecognized 124,000 prophets and messengers that were sent to their people. And thus the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam restored the rights to Aristotle, and he gave us an example of how it is that we should deal with the teachers and the revered figures of the different religions. Instead of automatically assuming them to be false teachers, false guides, false religions, we have to put forth the possibility, right, that these religions that the other people have were actually real religions that were based off of real prophets and messengers that we too, as Muslims, believe in. It would be such a shame to write off a teacher or a revered figure for a great civilization such like that of the Hindus, the Indians that they have, and it turns out in the end that their revered figures such as Krishna and Arjuna turned out to be prophets and messengers that prayed with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the night of Ascension, or in the events that took place in the Isra wal Ma'raj.
Wow, what an amazing way to finish that clip there on that note where al-Sadiq talks about how these men that are looked down upon as the leaders in a spiritual tradition that goes back to the very, very ancient of times could have prayed in the story or the narration of the Isra and the Miraj, which is of course a very famous Islamic narration where the Prophet Muhammad, or an incident where the Prophet Muhammad prays, and behind him pray all of the messengers and the prophets that ever walked upon the earth, and he is their leader in the prayer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he said that these individuals, and he mentioned Krishna and Arjuna, who are of course the chief protagonists of the Mahabharata and also the Bhagavad Gita. He says these two that you are looking down upon and you're cursing out could have prayed behind the Prophet as prophets in their own right. So absolutely astonishing statement there by the riser of the family of Muhammad. And he gives a very interesting account and the justification for that, Kevin. He talks about what you were saying about the ancient Greeks and how there was a certain personality who was cursing out Aristotle, and the Prophet Muhammad stopped them in his tracks and says, you know, be very careful about what you're saying. And I think this proves beyond any shadow of a doubt that these lands where apparently we had 124,000 prophets, a couple of them may have snuck into India maybe.
No, definitely. And I was thinking when I was hearing the last, as you said, the last moments of his speech, of this clip at least, he's saying like, what a big mistake would be to just curse somebody who and it turns out that he's a prophet or a messenger, and but even if he wasn't, I mean, what a shame it is to curse somebody who is like, when you read the books, you're seeing that he is teaching the people to behave good. Like the same morals and manners that the Prophet Muhammad and Jesus and Moses are trying to implement in the society, this is the same thing. Even if he was like a fake teacher, but he is or not appointed by God, but he's teaching the same things, and he's striving for his people to implement this justice and goodness in society. It's a little bit shameful to just curse somebody like this, right? Just because he, like, why? Just because he was born in a different place than yours? Like, this is just racism, and you know, like this. Why? On what grounds would you curse somebody like that? Even if the religion now, even if the religion that you see today with your eyes seems to be very different to the religion that you practice, well, maybe if you saw Prophet Muhammad to begin with, maybe if you saw Prophet Muhammad, you could see him in a very different religion than the thing that you practice today. Right. But on the other hand, even if you are upon the true religion and you see another religion that looks different than yours, even so, like, you don't know how that religion started either. So maybe if you are upon the true religion and you saw Krishna back in the day, in the moment in the flesh when he was walking on the earth, maybe you would see the same thing. Maybe you would recognize, if you recognize the one in your time, of course you would recognize the one in that time, in that particular day and age, and that land that they came. And what he says about, like, we have like under 200 or 100 prophets and messengers that we know in the Bible and the Quran. There's 124,000 prophets that came, 313 messengers that came on the earth. Just that's enough for anyone to be terrified of accusing anybody else to be a false prophet, because you don't know. You really don't know.
Very well said, Kevin. And I think there are now in the mainstream lots of actually the scholars that have spoken about this issue, and even they've reached the conclusion that although they always end up with Allahu Alam because their name's not mentioned in the Quran, but even they have acknowledged that there is a very, very, very strong case that these individuals that are revered as spiritual leaders going back thousands upon thousands of years, teaching, as Brother Kevin said, these virtues and ethics and codes of behavior that have benefited human civilization, have a very, very strong case that they were from the 124,000 prophets and messengers. And al-Sadiq really does hit it out of the park when he gives a very specific incident in which a man returning from Alexandria in Egypt by the name of Amr ibn al-As is cursing a man called Aristotle, who is, of course, somebody who left a huge impact on the Western intellectuals tradition. And the Prophet Muhammad said, look, he was a prophet. Basically, that's what he said. So if Aristotle, peace be upon him, is from among the prophets and messengers of God, then it only stands to reason that a personality who is known globally by the name of Krishna is also from among those same prophets and messengers. It's a very, very logical conclusion to
and
make.
it should be a honor for anyone to be able to claim them as part of the same religious tradition that you are upon, you know? Because these are great men, great men that came to teach mankind and to bring them to the next level. So instead of cursing them, I think like the right, I think like people, if they were not prophets, we should be a little bit like we should have a little bit of healthy envy towards them because of course they had great teachers as well. They had great teachers.
Yeah, they were not just mere philosophers. They were much more than that. And al-Sadiq's Facebook post that we shared a couple of days ago, Kevin, it mentions that verse from the Quran that says, "We make no distinction between any of them," referring to the prophets and messengers that was sent. And why? Because they came from the same source. As simple as that. So let us not curse these ancient civilizations that had these great men teaching the same virtue ethics that the Prophet Muhammad, Moses and Jesus were teaching. Let us respect and honor the people of these lands and not refer to them as pagans or heathens or polytheists when we really haven't taken the trouble nor the time to look into their spiritual tradition and its roots. So the riser of the family of Muhammad said namaste, so we also say namaste. We come in the name of unification and peace and mutual understanding. Let's go to our third clip. There is definitely going to be more interesting revelations in there, so when we come back, Kevin and I will hopefully try to get those pearls and gems that are embedded in every single speech of the riser of the family of Muhammad.
So moving forward now and recognizing all that which I have just mentioned, and recognizing that Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam, when he comes, and the Qa'im, when they come, they actually come for all mankind, and that there's this event that's going to take place in the future that the Christians recognize, the Jews recognize, the Muslims recognize, and not just them, but many other religions recognize as an event that's going to take place in the future, where there's going to be an enlightened being who will restore religion back to its roots and unite all of those people. We have to recognize that perhaps as part of that unity takes place in the uncovering and unveiling and revelation to the world that, hey, who did you revere? You revered Buddha? Actually, he was a real prophet from God. And you revered Krishna? He was also an unknown prophet and messenger to the Christians and the Jews, who is a true prophet and messenger. And you revered X and you revered Y. Well, all of these individuals, actually, there's room for them under the divine religion that Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam comes with, because Imam al-Mahdi is the gatherer and the uniter of all of the peoples. We also know in the narrations that the Imam al-Mahdi, in some narrations, the Qa'im, in other narrations, it states that he will take the cut letters, al-huruf al-muqatta'a, the individual letters that appear at the beginning of the surahs of the Quran, and out of it he formulates the greatest name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which consists of 73 letters. All right. And the huruf al-muqatta'a are those mysterious letters that appear at the beginning of many surahs in the Holy Quran. So you have, for example, a surah that will start with alif, lam, mim. Another surah will start with alif, lam, ra. You have a surah that starts off with the letter noon. You have a surah that starts off with qaf. You have a surah that starts off with taha or yasin. And the Muslims have been mystified and unable to understand for many, many years. Since the coming down of the Quran till now, nobody has known except for the household of the Prophet Muhammad, the divinely appointed Imams and Mahdis, what is the significance of these particular letters that appear at the beginning of the surahs. One narration, like I stated, sheds light on that and says that out of these letters, the Imam is going to be able to formulate the greater name of God. So some people have hypothesized and said that what that means is that he'll take the alif lam mim and he'll put it next to the qaf and he'll put it next to the noon, and he will begin to formulate a secret name that's never been heard before. And other people consider that these names to be references to individuals, hujjas from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, names of prophets and messengers, or the first letter from the name of the prophet or the messenger, and that is going to be revealed in due time. Other people have hypothesized that they are actually symbols for knowledge, that each and every letter represents a particular type of knowledge, perhaps a particular knowledge that came from a messenger. So you might have this idea that, for example, one or two of those letters represent knowledge that was attained by Jesus. Another four of the letters were knowledge that was attained by a different prophet, etc. And that the combination, the Imam al-Mahdi or the Qa'im, attaining the knowledge of Jesus and putting it together with the knowledge of another prophet and putting it together with the knowledge of another prophet, having access to all of those knowledges from the different prophets and messengers, because he is the inheritor of all of the knowledge of the prophets and messengers. Putting them together, he is able to get out of all of those knowledges from the prophets and the messengers the true name and the true essence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is something which will give him great victory. And a person who knows a name, he knows by that name that individual, right? And that's something which Ahmad Hashem spoke about in the book of Monotheism, and that's why it's important for us to know the names of God. And the physical manifestation of the names of God in creation are the prophets and the messengers. So if Imam al-Sadiq is the manifestation of one of the names of God, when I come to know that name, when I come to know Imam al-Sadiq right, then I'm coming to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if each and every one of these manifestations of God were limited manifestations because they're in the world of creation, then they would represent more of a letter than he would an entire word or entire name. And to know all of them together would be the ability to know God in a greater way and form. Does that make sense?
Yes, it's just another proof for all of us that God brings a divine messenger for the people, and the knowledge that you are revealing, only you know, because you are divinely appointed by him.
God bless you, Atika.
SubhanAllah, that's another very interesting and rich video, rich in knowledge, rich in wisdom. Yeah. It is al-Sadiq talking about an event, something that will happen in the near future, whereby people who share a common origin, a common spiritual origin, will be able to come together and recognize the truth of a matter because they recognize the language or the information or the knowledge that reaches them to be present in their own spiritual tradition. And I just wanted to say a little word here, and I'm sure it's something that the riser of the family of Muhammad will cover in a future lecture or talk when he addresses the people of the land of India, which is the very interesting, their end times or eschatological figure that comes to bring salvation. They have a very interesting name for him, Kevin. And it is a name that when you hear about the description of this individual that they are anticipating to come, you will see a huge similarity in that man that the Muslims are expecting to come. The Indian eschatological savior is called Kalki. And he's called Kalki for a very specific reason, because he comes at a time when darkness has prevailed over the earth in a way like it has no other. And they call this time the Kali Yuga or the Kali Yuga. And of course, we know in the Indian spiritual tradition, they believe in these cycles of time that come and go and come and go. Sometimes are when the proof of God is there, is like the rising of the sun, then another proof of God comes, and they believe that time period is where the religion reaches its pinnacle and zenith, and then they believe that it starts to get dark before the cycle repeats itself. That they have this kind of understanding when it comes to spirituality and how the spiritual tradition of that land goes through these phases or cycles or yugas, as they call them. And they believe, interestingly, that by the end of the Kurukshetra war, or the war that is referred to in Mahabharata, they entered into the beginning of the Kali Yuga, or the Dark Ages, which is interesting, isn't it? Because with the ending of the cycle where Krishna was present, who they believe is an avatar of Vishnu, they entered into the beginning of that phase. And the one who takes them out of that phase is Kalki. And Kalki means the destroyer of darkness. And they mention some very interesting things about this character. They say that he takes people out of this darkness by addressing the corruptions in the Sanatan Dharma conducted by the scholars of that religion. And they also say that he will create a great battle against the leaders that occupy the thrones in that time, because they too are corrupted. Now, when you compare it to other religions, like, for example, in Buddhism, that is a neighbor religion to Hinduism, they have a character called the Maitreya. And the Maitreya is a very kind of benign figure in the sense that it means somebody who is a friend. It comes from mitra, which means friend, and a great teacher, and this and this. But the Kalki, it resembles almost to a T the description of the Qa'im in Islam, especially in the 12 Shia version of Islam. So a fascinating similarity from the outside. And they say he comes on a white horse, he comes in with a sword. There's a lot of symbolism that matches certain descriptions of the Qa'im. And it's very interesting how al-Sadiq then transitions into this idea of letters of knowledge, Kevin.
Yeah, I love that part. And I think it's really worth reflecting this part, because at least for me, I remember when I was watching the video, that took me a while to process what he's trying to say. But I think a good parallelism that I'm thinking about right now is how we know that Prophet Idris, Prophet Idris is a prophet mentioned in the Holy Quran, for those of you who don't know about the Quran, and it just says, like the Quran just says like a very few words on Prophet Idris. He says, remember in the scripture Idris, indeed he was truthful and a prophet, and we raised him to a high station. And that's pretty much what the Quran says about Idris. We have other traditions in the Islamic narrations that tell us a little bit more about Idris, and there is one particular narration where Prophet Muhammad ﷺ says that Idris is known by the Hebrews or in the Bible as Enoch. So here we have a connection, and I was thinking, well, let me just carry on with this thought, so you will see the connections to what he says.
Absolutely.
So we have Idris and we have Enoch, and interestingly, there is a narration by Prophet Muhammad that says that Idris received from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala 30 books and 30 names. Okay? So al-Sadiq has delved deeper into these names, and we had previously a documentary on Prophet Idris and on all the connections in that exist right now on the face of the earth to this character. So Idris is Enoch from the Bible, and the Bible also says that he walked with God and he was not, because God raised him to the sky. So there is a parallelism between the character of Enoch in the Bible, raised to the sky, and the character of Idris in the Quran, raised to a high station. So the thing is that when you delve deeper into what Idris did in the Islamic narrations, al-Sadiq draw the parallelism that basically what the Islamic narrations say about Idris is exactly the same thing as the Egyptian people say about a different character called Osiris, who was one of the kings who is also regarded as a god in the Egyptian religion. Right? So basically, al-Sadiq said they are actually, because they are so similar, right? It is not a coincidence that the same things that are said about Osiris in the Egyptian traditions are the same things that they are said about Idris in the Islamic traditions. They are actually the same character. So now we have what? We have Idris, and we have Osiris, and we have Enoch, and we have another character in the Greek history called Hermes Trismegistus, and we have another character in the Egyptian mythology called Thoth, and all of these are names for the same character. So, if you are only looking at history from the perspective of the Greek religions, you will see Hermes Trismegistus, and you may never come to the conclusion that this Hermes Trismegistus is the same as Osiris, is the same as Thoth, is the same as Idris, is the same as Enoch. So each and every person, depending on where they came, they know the same person by a different name. Yeah. And because they know him by a different name, they know a different aspect of him, and they may believe that it's not the same thing. So it's the same thing that al-Sadiq was mentioning about the names of God. He's saying Prophet Muhammad brought forth 2 letters of knowledge, or Jesus brought forth 2 letters of knowledge. Prophet Muhammad 72, Jesus 2. Before him, Moses brought forth 4. Before him, Abraham brought 8, and before him, Noah brought how many? 25. Wow. Right. So every single person knows God by a different name. Okay? So what's going on here is the same thing as with the character of Idris. Everybody knows him by a different name. So because they know him by a different name, it is funny that nobody realizes that they are looking at the same, like they are talking about the same individual, which is the God Almighty, the ultimate God. Why? Because they know him, and he's saying, like, it's not about the name, it's about the knowledge that comes with this name. These letters of knowledge that they brought forth are knowledge. Yeah. And he said they are vastly different knowledges as well. Yeah. It's not the same. The letters of knowledge that Jesus brought are not the same as Moses, are not the same as Noah, are not the same as Abraham. So each one of these religions are looking at the things from a widely different perspective, and this is why they don't realize that they are looking at exactly the same thing. Only few of them have made the connections, the Islamic, Judeo-Christian, and at the same time, since each one of these religions has become like a sect, in the sense that they only want to see what they have canonized in their own scriptures. The Christians only want to look at the New Testament. They forget about not only the Old Testament, but also all the non-canonical books in the in the Judaic tradition. And the same thing, the Jews, they don't want to look at the New Testament, they don't want to look at the Quran, the Muslims don't want to look at the Bible, don't want to look at any of the stories of the Christians and the Jews. So they know God, they think, and this is why they think they are enemies, is they are not realizing, even these religions that perceive themselves as continuations, they are not realizing that there is knowledge that they could benefit from in other traditions, and this is the same thing that is happening in the wider scale of the world, right?
Yeah.
Like everybody's looking at each other as, no, we have a different religion, ours is the true religion, them are like fake religions,
Yep.
and they don't realize that it's all pieces of a massive puzzle that, of course, somebody needs to come and are you willing to let humanity never know the truth about God? Like, is this something that do you think it's good that God never solves this mystery in mankind? I don't think it's good. I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's something that God would like. I think God created us to know Him. So, of course, whatever knowledge there is in the different traditions, somebody has to come and put it all together, and this is exactly what the prophecies say about the Mahdi, that he will come and he will put forth all the pieces of the puzzle, all the letters of the name of God, and give it to the people.
And give it to the people. And certainly these 72 letters of knowledge, which is just missing one letter which God keeps for himself, but out of the 72 that are available to the creation of God, they were all accumulated by Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. However, he did not find in his time the people who could handle that knowledge, and therefore this knowledge was passed on from the Prophet Muhammad through the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt until they reach the hands of the Qa'im, the riser of the family of Muhammad, who gathers these letters of knowledge back in terms of those that were present in the prophets and the messengers, whether they be the Abrahamic prophets that Brother Kevin mentioned, or indeed the unknown prophets. And they also, interestingly, gather around this individual. And doesn't it just make sense that the man who is called Hermes Trismegistus, or Hermes the thrice great, the thrice honored, the thrice glorified, as Osiris, Enoch, and Idris in these three traditions, as well as the Greek tradition, as Hermes, would be the one that puts it all together, because he is involved cross-culturally in these different forms as different incarnations as the same person. So it's poetic, it's beautiful, and the riser of the family of Muhammad is the one to make sense of these huruf al-muqatta'at that he refers to as those letters, those mysterious letters in the beginning of certain surahs of the Quran, and the mysteries keep being unveiled by this individual. So this individual that we call the riser of the family of Muhammad, his name is Abdullah Hashem. He is mentioned by name in the will of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as his successor in this day and age. He's the only one by that name who has come forth holding the will, the banner of guidance, and possessing this vast body of knowledge, and said to the people that I am the proof of God in this time. I am the appointed caliph of God, and he is proving it day after day after day, and the people are beginning to wake up. Alhamdulillah. So with that, let's go to our next clip, and we'll be right back after we have finished.
So then we have a narration which actually kind of confirms what it is that I said. And this narration is a really important one. It's one of my favorites. And basically, the Imam says, one of the Imams from the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, he says that Jesus was given 2 letters of knowledge. And by those 2 letters, he was able to perform the miracles and do the things which he did. Then it says, and Moses was given 4 letters of knowledge. Now imagine what all Moses had. He had the Torah, he had the 10 Commandments and the 613 commandments that were given to him. He had the knowledge of that which was present in the books of Genesis through Deuteronomy. He was given 4 letters of knowledge. And through that, he was able to split the sea and do all those miracles which he did. And then it says, and Abraham was given 8 letters of knowledge.
Wow.
And then it says, and Noah was given 25 letters of knowledge. And then it says, and God gathers all of them together and gave it to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And verily, God's greatest name consists of 73 letters of knowledge, and God gave 72 out of the 73 to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Wow, subhanAllah.
Which was then inherited by his household. Now, there's a couple things that I want to point out about this narration. If you notice, it starts off with, post-flood, the post-flood, the new world, where the new and improved Adam, Noah, is sent. And he carries, after the flood, 25 letters of knowledge with him. But through the course of history, the knowledge that seems to be given to the next messenger who comes with a new jurisprudence is less. It goes from 25 with Noah, 8 with Abraham, 4 with Moses, 2 with Jesus, until the final prophet or messenger comes, and that is the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he has all of the letters of knowledge with the exception of 1. He's not able to distribute this knowledge in his time. This is something which he hands in secret to his successors, the imams, one by one, and they hold on to it and preserve this knowledge until it is granted in the end to the Qa'im, who the narrations say spread those letters of knowledge amongst mankind, right? Yeah. And cause God to be worshipped in the open as he was once worshipped in secret. He represents the dawn of a new age, of a new day. And that's a really important fact. And another important fact in the narration is this idea that God gathered all of them together. Right? So it's not that Moses had the 2 that Jesus had, right? And Abraham had 8, but from those 8, he had the 4 that Moses had. What it's saying is that all of those knowledge that each and every one of them had was vastly different. And so God gathered the 2 that Jesus had, plus the 4, that's 6, plus the 8 that Abraham had, plus the 25 that Noah had, and all of these letters of knowledge combined made up a portion of the 72 letters of knowledge that the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam had. Then that would also mean that from those 72 parts of knowledge, there were other prophets and messengers that existed on the earth that had letters of knowledge that were sent to their people, and their people lost the knowledge, or they rejected the knowledge, or they didn't preserve the knowledge. And the ones whom preserve and restore and bring to light and hold the explanations, the true meanings behind the words of those prophets and messengers that nobody else knows except for him and his messenger, are revealed to the world once again by the Qa'im, by the Mahdi, who comes and restores Islam back to its origin. But he also, according to the narrations, works by the Sharia of Adam, and works by the Sharia of Noah, works by the Sharia of David. So he's the restorer of all of the different jurisprudences. So he restores the jurisprudence of the previous prophets and messengers, and he restores also the jurisprudence and the laws and the teachings of the unknown prophets and messengers that the people forgot about.
This is just another great proof that you are the one that's restoring these letters, because you are the only one that's revealing divine knowledge and really bringing forth the things from the ground and the small details that really people don't pay attention to. And yeah.
God bless you, Atiq.
Yes, and I think we were a little bit like mentioning in the previous section part of what he explains in this section about the letters of knowledge and how each prophet and messenger came with different letters of knowledge from the name of God. So of course, I mean, it's clear, and it makes me like stand on my ground that the fact that if Krishna was not a prophet from God, I would be jealous of the Hindus for having such a great prophet amongst them and to have learned from. And yeah, definitely, I mean, I think for people who people need to stop and contemplate really, because of course if the religion that they are practicing was correct, was truthful, was enough, they themselves would have been enough to create a paradise on earth, as was the mission of all the prophets and the messengers. So the fact that we haven't been able to do so means that something has been wrong with the religion of most of the people through all the ages. So it is normal and it is obvious that God needs to send somebody to fix it and to fix the state of the world and to make justice to all these prophets and messengers who have been misunderstood and misrepresented, and not only by the adherence to different religions, but also by the adherence of their own religion, and specifically the non-working scholars. As you said, like I was mind blown when you said that the prophecies of the Kalki are that he is going to fight the religious scholars of his day and age, which is an exact parallel to the prophecies in Islam to the riser of the family of Muhammad. So it's either the fact that they were copying each other, or that they are talking about exactly the same thing. So there is no such thing as a coincidence, and to be able to say that they were copying each other, you would have to say, okay, Muhammad would have had to be the false prophet that copied him. But if he was a false prophet, how come he is teaching humanity and he is teaching, all these morals and manners that took people from, like, he basically civilized the Arabs, right, back in his day and age, and he didn't give them except goodness and fairness and justice and equality and a better quality of life. So if he was a false prophet, then the ones who are calling him false prophet should be envious of having of the Arabs having this this teacher amongst them. So I think it's really, really, really important that we all just, as humanity, just chill out and start like looking at each other and at each other's religions with peace, with an open mind, and to start analyzing what is it exactly that they were teaching, and is there anything? And I can assure you this 100%. Go and read the Bhagavad Gita and the Vedas and the Ramayana, and you will understand your religion, no matter what it is, way better, because of the teachings of this, because the teachings of Hinduism will make the teachings of your own religion resonate in a very different way, and you will find by yourself the similarities between them.
Yeah, this is where the riser of the family of Muhammad really does put the pieces of the puzzle together to give us all that complete picture and better understanding about the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one God, the same God that is worshipped by Hindus, Muslims, Jewish people, Christians, and the rest of mankind. There is one God, and He is that force of unification and order that we all have to turn to.
Yeah.
Let's bring in our penultimate clip and then we will come back and just unpack that for you. And I believe after that there's one more clip, so we should finish on time today. Let's take a look at what the riser of the family of Muhammad has to say about the religion of Hinduism.
So now we're going to look at one of the most influential and revered figures in the history of all of mankind, and that is a character who is central, right? A character and characters who are central to a religion that is practiced by a vast majority of people that are part of the Indian civilization, and that is the character that is central to the religion of Hinduism, and that is the figure of Krishna. What's amazing about Krishna is that actually in the history of the prophets and the messengers, right? If you look at the timeline of the prophets and the messengers, Krishna is a figure that is not only revered by hundreds of millions of individuals around the world, but he's actually worldwide famous. Everybody knows, for the most part, who Krishna is, even if they are not a believer in Krishna. Almost everybody knows who he is. And this divine honor is not given to many people in the world. It's given to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Everybody knows. Everybody on the planet knows the name of Muhammad. Everybody on the planet knows the name of Jesus. Everybody on the planet knows the name of Moses and knows the name of Buddha, right? And pretty much everybody also knows the name of Krishna, have heard about him, have heard something he said, or has been influenced by him. Their society has been influenced by him in one way, shape, or form. Krishna is also an individual who has become famous worldwide, and has been famous for many, many centuries. He actually predates the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He predates Jesus. He predates even Abraham and Buddha. So he is one of the oldest prophets and messengers that we have his name on record, or let's say until proven to the people over the course of the coming episodes and series, which I'm going to prove to the viewers without a shadow of a doubt that Krishna, peace be upon him and peace from him, was one of the greatest messengers that were ever sent to mankind. But I will prove that.
I would love to really know about Krishna, because you're right, everybody knows the name Krishna, and he was known to be a powerful. And especially for the Indians, they really look up to him like a god. So I would really want to know the divine knowledge behind him.
Let's delve into it a little bit, shall we?
Yes.
So the Indians, they have a series in Hinduism of sacred texts. One of the sacred texts that they have is the Bhagavad Gita.
Yes.
Another one of the sacred texts that they have is the Mahabharata. The Bhagavad Gita is a small part of the Mahabharata. So if the Mahabharata was the Quran, the Bhagavad Gita would be a large surah of the Quran, okay? If the Mahabharata was the New Testament, then the Bhagavad Gita would be like a chapter in there, or a book from the New Testament, or a book from the Old Testament. The first thing that we know about both the Mahabharata and the Bhagavad Gita, since it's really a part of it, is that it is essentially a poem that is written in Sanskrit. And that is interesting, and it brings to mind immediately the Holy Quran, who was also preserved and revealed in the form of a poem, right? Poetry was the big thing at the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the Quran came down in poetic form. And we also have in the Old Testament, we have the songs of Solomon and we have the Psalms of David, and these are poems, and we have lots of parts of the Old Testament that are in poetic form. Now, the New Testament, because it was preserved in Latin, and it was not in a poetic form, but perhaps there was a precursor to that that was based in a more poetic form. But we have that aspect of the holy text, or one of the holy texts of Hinduism, matching that which we have in Islam and that which we have in Judaism, and that is the poetic form of it. The other important aspect to know, which we will be going into over the course of the episodes, it will become more and more clear for the people to see, is that the religion of Hinduism has this feature to it, which is a classical feature and a hallmark of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and that is that it is a monotheistic religion. It is not a polytheistic one, even though people consider it to be a polytheistic one. In actuality, it is not a polytheistic one. Monotheistic religion means what? It means that there is one supreme being, one supreme God, that the followers of that religion, they are all created by him and they worship him. And that is the great thing in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, that it was propagating this idea, right, that there is only one God, la ilaha illallah, right?
Yes.
And the commandments of Moses, that God is one, worship no other gods but me. And we find the same thing in Hinduism, although people tend to deny that and they get confused about that, and we'll talk about the reasons why. The main reason why is because they have a lot of deities in Hinduism that they refer to as gods. And so the person who's on the outside looking in, they find a pantheon of gods, and they find statues of these gods that are existing, paintings of them that are being kept in the houses of the practitioners of Hinduism. They have fables and stories that are associated with each and every one of these deities and gods, and the people pray to them. And this kind of mirrors in a big way and reminds us of the dilemma that we have, especially in Catholicism and Christianity, where you have, and that's why a lot of people accuse the Catholics of being polytheists, actually, and not monotheists. You ask a Catholic, are you a polytheist? They will tell you, no, we're not polytheists. Obviously not. We believe in one God. And even for the Christians and the Muslims and the Jews, you ask them about Christians and they'll say that Christians are actually polytheists. Why? Because they're worshiping God and they're worshiping the Son, Jesus, and they're worshiping the Holy Ghost. In Catholicism, they have the same thing, the Trinity, but they also have specific importances that they have placed upon figures such as Mary or various saints that they hold to a high standard in Catholicism. And you'll find statues of these saints that exist in different churches and that are also sold, paintings of these saints that are held onto and kept in the homes of many Catholics. You have different nations and football teams and different countries that have patron saints that they believe to be defenders or intercessors between them and God.
Yes, so the riser of the family of Muhammad is really he's made a commitment and a promise to prove people beyond any shadow of a doubt that Hinduism indeed is a monotheistic religion like Islam, Christianity and Judaism. And you cannot accuse people of being mushriks when at the very heart and foundation of their religion there is this concept of the Brahman, or the all-pervasive oneness and unity. This being from which all other beings emanate or come forth. So this is really what Hinduism is all about. It is a very, very powerful monotheistic religion, and that's a news to a lot of people. And just like you would approach somebody from a Catholic background and say, "Are you polytheists?" They would say, "No, of course not. We believe in a Trinity, but the Trinity is actually a unity, and that is one, and then one God is one." And in the same way, the Hindus who are accused of being mushriks and polytheists, actually at the very heart of their religion, there is that same concept of monotheism.
Yeah, and for example, me growing as a Catholic, we were told since I was very young that the statues and the paintings that decorate the houses and the churches of Catholics, they are not gods. Like, they are not to be taken as gods. They are not to be worshipped. They are just going to, they are expressions of and remembrances of the characters that they depict. So it's kind of like, in order that you remember about them, in order that you it's like a kind of dhikr that you have to remember about these persons. And also because what al-Sadiq says, they are seeing them as intercessors, as people who, if you revere them, you will, and revere them not in the sense of worship, just in the sense of being respectful to. And I think I've heard this in the Dhammapada as well, and this Buddhist text, that it is important for the believer to revere other people from the past who achieve what you want to achieve, what you claim to want to achieve, right? They are people who got to the higher levels of faith, and by achieving that, God also granted them the ability to intercede for you or to help you on your path as well. So this is how Catholics see it. Yes. They don't see them as gods. They don't see them as something to be worshipped. Of course, you may find people who are
ignorant, unfortunately, of their own religion. And this is actually a very common issue as well, that over the years, and of course Hinduism is, some say 6,000, some say 7,000 years old. But what happens over time is, unfortunately, the people forget the essence of their own religion.
Exactly.
Just as the Muslims have done, they're no one to point the finger at anyone else. And the fact of the matter is that these deities that are carved from stone or from different materials, they're supposed to direct one's focus in a particular direction, so that you can really focus on that door that leads to God, and remind you that these people are connected to the Almighty, the All-Knowing, the Unseen God, and they're the ones that need to be pointed to. And if that is the standard by which people are referred to as idol worshippers, then every Muslim that bows down before a Kaaba made of stone is also an idol worshipper.
Or anyone who admires somebody. Any Muslim who admires a particular sheikh is also an idol worshipper.
Exactly.
Right? Because it's the same concept. You are admiring them because you think that they have reached what you want to reach. Why else would you admire them? So it's the same thing for the saints in Catholicism, or the gods, the demigods in Hinduism. There's many Hindus who can tell you this, that actually they revere one God, and that all these demigods are kind of manifestations of aspects of God, which is very similar to what we are saying. That is it's very close to what we're telling. That is the truth. We're telling you that the prophets and the messengers are also, by killing their own ego, by destroying their own self-interest, they have achieved a rank in which the attributes of God are shining through them. So basically, what you're seeing when you see a prophet or a messenger is you're seeing something from the essence of God that is shining through this person. So they become names of God.
Yes,
they become
yes.
expressions of the characteristics of God. So it is exactly the same concept.
Yes.
And many Hindus can actually
can
verify
relate to
this.
it, absolutely. Yeah. And this is very well said, Kevin. And actually, the name Krishna, I was looking into it, and it has a couple of different meanings, but the real one that the most of the Indian scholars talk about, the original rishis and sages of that religion, Krishna means the attractive, that beauty which attracts. Wow. And if that is not a beautiful name, then I don't know what is. And of course, God, by his nature, is truth and beauty and many other things. Yeah. God has these attributes that the Muslims say, and the Hindus just choose to call him the beautiful or the attractive. And if God isn't attractive, then who is? So let's go to our final clip of the day, and then we will wind up today's episode of Rise Up. So take a look at the next clip of the rise of the family of Muhammad, talking about the religion of Hinduism, and then we'll be right back after that.
And so the practitioner of Catholicism, they don't believe that any of these saints is God, and they're not worshiping them as such. They don't believe even that Mary herself is God, but they believe her to be somebody who intercedes on their behalf for God due to her closeness to Jesus Christ or to the Father. And they believe that these individuals, if they ask them or ask for things or favors from God in their name, if they honor them, that they will receive those things that they were asked for. And they believe that there are particular tasks, right, that were delegated to them by the Creator Almighty. And so they function in many ways as an angel, so to speak, that takes care of fertility or takes care of particular aspects of creation without being equal to the individual that created them in the first place. This is precisely the same thing in Hinduism. The Hindus, the followers of Hinduism, they believe that there is one supreme being, and that being is called the Brahman, right? He is the super creator, right? He's the super soul, so to speak. He is the supreme universal being or deity, that out of him came all life, and he is responsible for creating all things. Nobody is equal to him, and he is one and one alone without any partners. All right? But they do believe that there exists a large pantheon of other deities that they call demigods, all right? Lesser gods, beings that are gods, just like we spoke about in Islam, right? When we talked about the dua that the Ahl Bayt alayhim salam make when they say, "O Lord of Lord, O King of King, O God of Gods," right? Yeah. That there is this word, God, that is referring to somebody who is at a high state of perfection that other people are in need of or are poor to or depend on to carry out their particular functions. And Ahmad Hashem, he explains this beautifully in the book of Monotheism, which I hope that everybody would download from our library and on our website, www.theahmadireligion.org. You can read about this concept of monotheism, Tawheed, and how it does not contradict this idea of the existence of multiple lords or multiple gods, so long as the ultimate God or the He is above all. And that is what we find in the religion of Hinduism. We find that they have a supreme being, the Brahman, who is above all other deities, but there are these other demigods who manifest from time to time on earth and who are responsible for and delegated particular tasks by the supreme being in order to carry out his will amongst creation.
Thank you, Father, for just giving a great, clear explanation. For the Indians now, like the Hindus, for the Brahma, it's like they're only one God, and the rest, like Krishna, are sent by God to be for the Hindus divine messenger. So thank you, it makes so much sense.
It does make so much sense, and there we have, right there in front of us, we have just another people who are our brothers and sisters, actually. They're a great civilization that should be respected, and they are some of the smartest people on the face of the planet and some of the most spiritual people. They refuse to reject God. They hold on to the religion. They are our brothers and sisters in monotheism. There's really no difference between us and between them in that sense, in the sense of them worshiping one God, although they give a different name to that one God. You cannot limit the ultimate creator with only one name, and that's what we find happening in the first place. You have Jesus referring to God as the Father, right? Yes. In the New Testament, you have him being referred to as Yahweh or El in the Hebrew Bible, right? The Torah. You have and that's where you get the names of the angels, Jibra'il, Mikael, right? The glory of Il. Yes. So you know that Il is one of the names of God. Yeah. You know that in Islam, God has many names. One of his names is Allah, but he's also Ar-Rahman, he's Ar-Rahim, he's Al-Wahid, he's Al-Qahar, he's the Beneficent, he's the Merciful, he's the One, he's the Conqueror, he's the Creator, he's the One who ends all things, he's the first, he's the last, the Alpha, the Omega. And so we know that God has an infinite amount of names, and Brahman is just one of these names that the Indian people or the great people of Bharat, they consider to be the name of their supreme being or their supreme creator.
If we look at it, it's like all these religions, on the apparent they all look different, but in the inner, it's actually all the same. It's just all different. They all have different attributes of God, but in different ways.
Exactly. And so I think what we're going to do is we're going to pause and we're going to stop there. And when we pick up in the next episode, we are going to study the Bhagavad Gita, which we spoke about today. And we're going to highlight the events that took place in that epic and sacred and holy text and pull out of Hinduism one or more letters of knowledge that have been passed down and preserved and given to Muhammad and the family of Muhammad alayhi salam, whom are the successors to Adam and Noah and Abraham, but they are also the successors of the demigods and the revered figures and the god of Hinduism, and that is Brahman and Krishna and Arjuna. Muhammad and the family of Muhammad and the Qa'im and the Mahdi, they are all successors of Krishna, and as we'll find out, they are the next manifestation that the Hindu people have been waiting for, who will come and breathe life to the words of the figures that they hold so dearly.
And welcome back. And now we will be hearing more and more on this channel Krishna alayhi salam and Arjuna alayhi salam. And a lot of people are going to get very confused and disturbed by this mixing of the cultures. But this is what it's about. It's the year of unification.
Yeah.
And this is the book that you need to read, my friends. It is called The Goal of the Wise, one of the greatest books ever written. And it has in it the chapter of the covenants, which finishes with the seventh covenant, which is, of course, the covenant that we're in right now. It is the covenant that unifies the people based on relations from the soul. And, of course, we all emanate from one soul and are, in essence, one family. And I wanted to go to chapter 7 and just read out the list of names in the name of the year of unification, Kevin, and to sign off on the episode that al-Sadiq said that he will talk about the unknown prophets that are mentioned, and he has mentioned 35 of them in the Goal of the Wise. Amazing. And there are many, many more. But I think this is enough material. I think there's lots of stuff coming our way, right? So he says, Imam Ahmad al-Hassan, from him his peace, has begun to reveal those prophets who were previously unknown to be prophets by the Jews, Christians, and the Muslims. Here are just a few examples. Buddha, Krishna, Confucius, Lao Tzu, Zeus, Osiris, Socrates, Aristotle, Plato, Alexander the Great, Mani, Pythagoras, Saint Augustine, Arnobius of Sicca, Plotinus, Ammonius Saccas, King Artaxerxes, Odin, Donatus Magnus, Cyrus the Great, Zoroaster, King Philip of Macedonia, Allat, Al-Uzza, Manat, Arjuna, Horus, Obaid al-Haddad of Iraq, Him of Iraq, Adran of Iraq, Ozura Uri of Iraq, Abdul Malik of Iraq, Theodosius II, Darius, and Amid of Egypt. And that's just a small segment of the unknown prophets of God, Kevin, that inshallah over the coming period in this year of unification we will get to learn more about. And I think it will only enhance us in knowledge and not diminish us. Yeah,
and for the people who are, for example, I notice in the comment sections people asking about what about the prophet here, prophets from here and from there and from here. I think we need to, like, for the believers, we need to understand that al-Sadiq is unveiling these concepts little by little, step by step, so that when we come to a different place and when he starts talking about a different place, the concepts in your mind that you're learning right now from learning that Hinduism is a divine religion will help you understand the concepts that they have in other religions. So, of course, I mean, I think Hinduism is a great example, not only because they are one of the biggest religion and the most ancient religion in the world right now that exists today, but also because many of the concepts that they have are actually, if you look deeply into both Abrahamic religions and the and Hindu religion, they are very similar, they are very compatible. And for the people who may be watching and seeing and maybe thinking that we're crazy for saying stuff like this, we highly recommend you to go and watch the video of al-Sadiq, a recent video of al-Sadiq called The Plurality of Gods in the Abrahamic Religions, where he tackles this idea that God in the Bible is called Elohim, which means the gods and not God. So he explains to the people why this is the case, why the Bible talks about the gods, that in the beginning the gods created the world, heaven and earth, things like this. So you should definitely go and look into it. Yes. And the book of Monotheism of Imam Ahmad al-Hassan, as al-Sadiq says in the video as well, is like a very fundamental book for you to understand. Everybody who hasn't read it should go and give it a read, because this book will, I mean, I think this is the book that convinced me that Imam Ahmad al-Hassan, like, solidified my faith in Imam Ahmad al-Hassan, because of how much he goes into. If you go and read it, and you will see everything is fully backed up by the narrations of Muhammad and the family of Muhammad, And the conclusions that he makes are not only like different to what the ulamas are teaching you, but mainly they are a foundational ground which can unite all the religions that exists in the world right now. So I recommend you to go and read that book, go and read this book, and go and watch all of the recent videos of al-Sadiq as well, because what is coming is the right of your lives.
Yes, very much so is. And let's sign off on today's episode of Rise Up in the way that al-Sadiq began the episode that he did in the Divine School of Mysteries, by Namaste, and join us here. We are open to one and all. If we have Hindu viewers, call in on the show. Let's talk about your religion, and let's really build these bridges that need building in this time, in this Kali Yuga that we're in. But the dawn is coming soon, and the riser is rising soon, and we have to unite under his banner. We are one family. And on that note, we'll see you same time, same place again on Sunday, 10 a.m. on Rise Up. Thank you very much for joining us, and Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.